Okay, welcome to our LegalHold webinar. Let's go ahead and get started. To the next page. Okay, so for our presenters today, we have Manu, our Senior Product Manager, and Caesar, our Product Manager for LegalHold. We also have a client panelist today, Lee from Xerox. So before we dive in, I just want to go over a few items. We are recording the webinar today, and following the session, we will send an email with a link to the recording. We also will have a Q&A at the end of the webinar, so feel free to enter your questions in the chat throughout the webinar. And with that, let's go ahead and jump in.
Thanks, Becca. So yeah, we'll start off with I'll give a little background introduction, for the product. I know at least from the registration list, a lot of y'all are not using the LegalHold product, so I'll spend some time just giving a little background. And then we'll look at the functionality that has been released over the last year or so. We have the export tool, a notice approval workflow, and some other functionalities just improving the process of the LegalHold management. And then we'll also look at our existing LegalHold roadmap for this year, and we want to also save enough time for question and answers at the end. I will be monitoring the chat. If you've had any questions, just let me know on that as well. Before I start, I just want to give you like a plug or our client conference, which is Interact. We're pretty excited to have it in person after a couple of years. It is in Nashville, with a lot of cool sessions around thought leadership and also kind of product specific sessions, on all the Mitratech products. So give it a look, and there's a website available that has a breakdown of all the sessions. So I'll just give a little background, on the LegalHold product. So this is a relatively newer product, that we released in 2019, that we built totally, from the ground up. It is a fully comprehensive and configurable, LegalHold solution built, on an intuitive design, which lets you manage, all your LegalHold process efficiently, and effectively. It is also fully integrated with all the Mitratech ELMs, Team Connect, eCounsel, Acuity, where the holds can be created, from the ELM, and there's a bi-directional sync between the matters in the ELM and the legal holds in the LegalHold application. It has all the bells and whistles. I won't go into the details of those, but and also has separate functionality to track the compliance from data stewards and collectors on the preservation and the collection of data. We've been investing heavily in adding more functionality to the product over the last year, and we're happy to share some of these new updates, during this session. Also want to give a little talk about the client working groups. So, when I started building this product in 2016, I had very limited knowledge about what a LegalHold process should be. So we ran about 40 of our existing clients in what we call a client working group, and we had sessions with a lot of them, every 3 weeks for more than 2 years, as we develop the product. And this is a great way, for our clients to get engaged with us, share your real-time business world cases for us to consider, and then provide kind of real-time feedback as we are developing, the functionality. And we do have client working groups going on right now for most of the Mitratech products, and I'll definitely recommend you, if you're an existing client, get in touch with your account manager. They can kind of get in touch with the product management team to basically sign you up for those and schedule those sessions. We also have Lee from Xerox, who's a Team Connect and a LegalHold client. And over the past, few years, I know he's attended multiple sessions on multiple products. Lee, would you like to share some of your just experiences from the benefits you've derived from joining these sessions?
Oh, absolutely. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. No, I absolutely love being part of the client groups. One, I like to be able to see kind of initially what's in progress before it comes out. And it's nice to be able to speak to your specific, our specific processes that we do, and to have that heard and to really kind of steer the development of the product, because I know, you probably it's designed with, you know, so many use cases, but to actually have your specific use case heard and see things that you've contributed to it. And so when it comes out and it really, I mean, it really meets your need when it comes out. So I think that's been the biggest thing with me being part of the client groups, is to kind of have that say on how we see ourselves using it, and to also hear other people's comments on how they would use it, and to see it kind of develop with that, and then kind of, you know, get excited, you know, okay, when's it going to come out with that functionality that we'd like to have. um, so I think that's the biggest thing that I get out of the client groups, is to really present how we would use it, and to really feel like you're being heard, and to see how it gets implemented.
Cool. Thanks, Lee. And we, this was specifically, as I mentioned, we already have working group sessions for most of our products, you know, like Team Connect, eCounsel, but we also have the one for LegalHold. We've had in the past. We're just going to start those again over the next, few weeks. So if you're interested in the LegalHold client working group sessions, feel free to reach out to us. So now just look at some of the functionality. What I'll do is I'll just give you a kind of quick breakdown of some of the features, and then Cesar will do kind of deep dive, giving a demonstration of what that feature is. So the first thing we're going to talk about, our new export tool. So, the LegalHold product does come with existing canned reports, but the market need or the market problem, I heard from clients was, it's painful to manually run, reports, all the time. Or sometimes if I have to run a report for thousands of custodians or potentially thousands of holds, there is like performance issues, and it just takes a lot of time to run these reports that I need, pretty urgently. And also, like, a lot of the clients I've spoken to, that that you might have downstream integrations, with third-party systems that rely on up-to-date information, from LegalHold. So, and there's no way for you to really do that. So the goal of building this new tool that we're looking at today is just providing flexibility for you to run, custom reports and be able to filter out the data, filter out the format of the file that is exported, and then automatically deliver this file on a schedule, either to an email address to a potential user who wants to look at the data, or also to an FTP location where if you want a third-party application to go into there and import that file on a daily basis or a weekly basis, that can happen, with this tool as well. Now we'll just kind of give a little kind of the screenshot. This is just a screenshot of what the tool looks like. It's pretty configurable. You can use different objects that LegalHold provides to build the final file that is exported. And then, you can schedule that particular file. So now Cesar can go into kind of a demonstration of what that looks like.
Sure. Well, in this case, we're going to talk about a little bit about the export tool that can be found under system settings in your LegalHold application. And it's called a configuration tool. As Manu said, this is a really powerful tool that we are trying to convert at the end into ad hoc report systems, which basically allows you to export the data from objects that are available in LegalHold, such as matters, such as holds, legal holds, such as the people records, recipients, and all the objects that you can see here. Of course, we have a plan to add more of them. Then it has a set of configurations where you can just drag and drop any field to the configuration that you might want, or just perform a double click over there and it will be added to the configuration. Also, you have a set of configurations here where you can change the header in order to fit to your needs, because we have received from our clients that sometimes the downstream third-party application requires a specific header to process the data. So we provide the ability to customize those headers, add some double quotes to the results. And of course, when we are talking about dates fields, we are able even to set a customized date format for that. So it's pretty powerful. It's pretty customizable. It's very flexible with all the data that you need. So once you have configured that, you will be able to set some filters. The filters that appears here are based on the objects that you have selected. So you can choose all the active holds in this case for this report, which is active custodians on holds. It's the holds which custodian status is active. You can select from the specific departments if you want to see some of them. You want to, and you have a lot of flexibility setting the filters for that. So also, as Manu said, you can deliver them by email by selecting the people that are creating the LegalHold as recipients for those, or just select an FTP location where it will be saved. This usually is being used for people that is using third-party application, and of course, set up or define a schedule when it will be run. It can be daily basis, it can be weekly basis, it can be monthly basis, and you can set up the start and the end date for that. So once you have set up this, you can have as many as configurations as you have, and you can activate them by the schedule task module, where you will notice that there is a schedule task called export tool configuration, where you can go on and select the configurations that you want to run. It can have as many as you want selected. Of course, you can set different times for every task so that you can make sure that everyone will run. So once you have selected, you press save. And this will activate the schedule for that and will generate the file. In my case, I have just created one that is called active custodian and holds, and it looks like this. Basically, it's all the columns that I have selected into the object for the object within the data and the format that I have placed it. So this will run in my case in daily basis, and it will be delivered around 10 p.m. every day. But of course, that it's you can configure that. You can make as many configurations you want, and you can select the ones that you want to run in a defined schedule. So that's how the export tool works.
Yeah, that's great. And indeed, as I mentioned, we just written it as phase 1 right now. Currently, we are working on the phase 2. Right now, it only exports the files into a CSV. We have on kind of roadmap working on like the PDF exports, making the usability a little more. Some people like PDF reports as opposed to CSVs. So that's something we are working on as part of the phase 2 development. Now, Lee, I know Xerox has a need for something like this, right? I think y'all are already using this tool, correct?
Absolutely. This was a godsend for us. We had two immediate uses for it. One was we do a daily feed, so we need to be able to pull all the active holds and all the recently received holds from the previous day. So we actually have this all set. We were able to like create this in like an afternoon. So every night it creates the file, it FTPs it to us of all the changes. Basically, we then process that into a format internal to us and feed it to our backend groups. So like our PC warehouse, our wireless group, our Office 365 team. And so they get nightly updates of the new people added to holds and the people that have been removed from holds. So that was the big one that we were able to set up. The other one we have is from an HR group. When they're getting ready to destroy employee files, like after the document retention period is expired, well, they want to know, are they still on a hold potentially? So we actually have a monthly report that we generate here, put in the recipients' names, and every month at the beginning of the month, this report gets sent out to the HR group that says everybody that's on a hold and everybody that's been released, so they can have some kind of confidence when they go ahead and start disposing of employee files.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
those were the two immediate ones we use, but we always, whatever reports are kind of out of the box, we always need something slightly different. We find, so I can't even tell you how many ad hoc reports I've done out of there where we just need to know real quick, during this time frame, who's on hold, total, numbers of things. We've been able to go ahead and get the information we want, and it's really easy. I mean, it's drag and drop and just specify who gets it, tell it to run, and then you have it. So that it meets a lot of our needs.
Cool. No, that's great feedback, Lee. Thank you. Yes, as I said, this is our phase one. We're still working currently on our phase two, adding more features to the way the report will be exported. The next thing we want to talk about was the notice approval workflow, and this is something I'd heard of, for a while. Currently, in the use case is basically, let's say I'm a paralegal, I'm working on a legal hold, and I have to get the verbiage or the text of the hold notice I'm sending out to custodians approved, by the primary attorney, for example, on that particular matter. So currently we have a way you can send out test email notices, but there's no way to track kind of the approval workflow. So that was kind of the biggest problem we had identified. All that approval is done via email, and there's no history or audit trail to really track for what hold, who's the person who approved a particular notice that was sent out, to the custodians. So the reason why we did this feature, or the goal, was to basically just speed up the notice approval workflow with defined timestamps, and then view all the status. Like if I'm an attorney, I want to be able to see a list of all the different notices that are pending my approval, a list of all the notices that I've already approved, and then have the tracking also on the hold history. So when I do my audit trail report for a particular hold, I have that also part, of the timeline view. So the functionality is pretty simple. It goes, basically when you're creating a legal hold, this workflow is optional. You can choose to enable it globally, or you can choose to enable it locally on every hold, but you'll basically just be able to assign an approver, and then the approver would be able to get an email message, log into the portal, make changes to the notice and approve it, which then kind of comes back, to the person who issued the approval workflow. So we'll just look at that feature. It's pretty cool. I think it provides a lot of value just to make sure that the text of the hold notice is fully approved before it's actually sent out, to the attorneys.
Okay, yeah. So let's start with this. I have created a hold that it's just for this purpose. Basically, as Manu said, this works as the approval workflow goes as by sending the notice to the notice approvers, which are basically the members of the legal staff that you define when you are creating the new legal hold. So once you have defined that, you can go to the hold notice step and start to create your whole content, which can be copied from an email template right here, and all this content will be sent to the approvers. In order to enable or disable this per hold, you can use this toggle that says enable notice approval. When you click on the approval details, you will be able to see the approvers that are for that notice, and of course the approval history. In this case, this haven't have a history because I didn't send to the approval. So when I save and send this to the approvers, I can continue within the legal hold process as usually I do. So just I select the persons that will be, the people that will be the recipients or the custodians for that. I can define the reminders, I can define, but the workflow will prevent the send of the notice, because until the approvers approves the notice, you cannot send the hold. So in order to approve it, the approver that have been selected in this case has to log in into the LegalHold platform and go to my approvals module. So in this case, I will log as the approver. So you can have an overview of the approver. So in this case, this is a user that is a custodian and also an approver of the hold. So if I go to the My Approvals module, it will show the list of the pending approvals notice that I have to be approved. So once I approve that, I will be able to continue within the process for the hold and being able to send it. So that's permit fit.
And the other thing is there's automatic notifications. Like once the approver an approver, approval is assigned to an approver. They get notified. When the approver takes an action to it, the legal hold administrator who issued the approval gets notified that this approval has been completed. They can also make changes if they want. The approver, they can also preview what the notice will look like before it's sent out. That's the approver, so they can see all the variables that are there in the notice. Those are kind of resolved as well, so they can then approve, and then all that history of the approvals, is tracked on the last screenshot, where you can basically see like who approved it, when it was approved, and stuff like that. So if you're ever running an audit trail on a particular legal hold, all that information would be always kind of available to you.
Right.
And that's something we recently added as well. This is just to be able to preview the message before you send it out. This is what the approver will also see with all the variables, automatically resolved.
Yeah, so this gives you a whole overview of how the notice will look when it reaches the inbox of the custodians.
Yeah, and this is something new as well. I don't think you would have seen this as well, but that's available in non-prod currently.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the notice approval workflow. The other thing we want to talk about was the enhanced templates and configuration, and this is pretty cool. This is something I was wanting to do this for a long time, and this is basically, if you look at our legal hold process, you might have seen kind of like a breadcrumb bar. I know some people refer to it like the domino pizza tracker bar on top. It has different steps that you have to go through in order to create a particular legal hold. One of the issues we heard from existing clients was, wouldn't it be cool if I can just pick a particular template, for example, and it will then fill all the corresponding steps automatically, thus kind of eradicating the need for me to fill that step manually, which was a problem, which was if you're doing this step repeatedly on multiple holds, every time, it takes a lot of effort for you to do that. So what we've done is we've created the new concept of what we call a hold template. We already have email templates. The hold templates is a little different. It'll just provide the flexibility for you to create steps like questionnaires, having a default set of custodians automatically as part, out of a particular template. And that can also then be used in conjunction with an existing email template. So we have a couple of screenshots, for that. Basically just lets you create a new concept, what we call a new hold template. When you're creating the hold template, you can actually assign groups of people that you say, hey, if I select this template, I want this hold to go out to these 5 people every time. If that's neat, you can do that. And also you can assign different questionnaires to a particular hold template. So what that means is when you select that hold template, the default list of people and the default set of questionnaires are automatically added to the hold, thus speeding up the whole creation process, because you don't have to go and select a particular questionnaire, or you might have to add new people, but at least you'll have a default set of people automatically added once the hold template is selected, thus speeding up the entire kind of whole creation process. And Cesar will kind of demo how that functionality works. This is something that just came out in non-production, which will come out as part of 2.9 in production in a couple of days. I think it's pretty cool and will add a lot of value to the product.
Yes. So as Manu said, this is a way to speed up the legal hold process creation. And in this case, you can select to create. This is basically a template for an email template, but you can choose to create one template from scratch, or just associate one of the templates that you have already created in LegalHold and just copy that information and just fill up the whole template's name. For example, litigation template, and which will be the subject for that. Litigation, we can say litigation for, and you can set some variables also to the title or the template subject, which will be displayed into the email. And once you have saved this, as Manu mentioned, you can set default groups to receive or to be set as the recipients for that. So this group will contain the people that isn't contained in this group will be the default people or recipients for that template. As well, within the questionnaires, you can copy the questions for yes, no, and if you have enabled the ensure questionnaire option, you will be able to set that as well. So whenever you take, for example, you will be able to see the questions that are related to that questionnaire. You can copy those template questions and you don't have to be creating from scratch. So you save the changes and make basically pretty much the same for the questionnaires that you will be using. In my case, I will be using those questionnaires. And once I have set up everything, I just can hit finish and my new template will be available to be used. In order to take that, we're just gonna go to the manage holds and we're gonna go to create a new one just to see. Usually when you have integrations with another ELMs like Team Connect or eConsole, the first two steps are filled by the integration itself. So let's talk about we will create a litigation hold here. And I have to set, just fill the data that I need. And I can skip the legal stuff for now. So you will be able to see in this notice step two buttons. One is copy from hold template and the other is copy from email template. You can decide to use one or another, but in this case, we will use the copy hold template because it has the template that we just created. So we will be able to see it here, and you will be able to see the content of the notice itself, which will be sent. You are able to see the questions that are related to the questionnaires associated within the template. And of course, you will be able to see the group that you have selected within the recipients. So if you click on the copy template button, all the information that is coming from the template will be filled, such as the subject, the content. You can decide if you want to enable the notice approval or not. That is up to you. You can decide if the preservation notice, if the template has questionnaires, it will automatically toggle the questionnaire to hold notice. But of course, that is an optional. You can decide to not use the questionnaires. So once I save, you will be able to see that the next step, that is recipient, will be filled with the information of the group that I have set or associated with that template, as well as the questionnaires one. So those are the questionnaires templates that I have set to that template. And of course, this saves you 3 steps of 7 for this if you are in LegalHold standalone. But if you have any integration, it basically will complete the LegalHold process, because you can also set the reminders and escalations in a global way, so that will save another step to you. So if the notice approval is not selected, but in this case it is, you are also able to send the notice, but in this case it has been sent to review. So the pretty cool thing about this is that you are saving time by the use of this.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing to remember is, like, as Cesar mentioned on that screen, the first 2 steps on that process are populated from the ELM, with Team Connect, eCounsel, Acuity, and then the other steps, when you pick a template, your questionnaires, a default list of custodians, the reminder schedules are all automatically populated as well. So technically, if you're doing 20, 30 holds a day, it'll just save a lot of time. And because if you use the same, I've heard of clients, I think Lee, I think I've heard that from you as well. We just use the same questionnaire, every day. And if you now have multiple holds, you can just add that to a template, and you don't have to have that extra step of always attaching a questionnaire. It'll just save you X number of clicks for every hold, just kind of speeding up the whole process, which was kind of one of the feedbacks we had gotten, from our clients, that we just want to create a hold faster. So I think this will definitely help in that endeavor, and we're pretty excited about this feature for sure. This is something quick. We'll just quickly talk about the use case behind this was, we have pretty detailed release workflow in the application. You can release multiple custodians from a single hold. You can release the whole hold and release all the custodians. You can also release multiple holds from a single custodian. But the use case was, what if you release one custodian and you realize, oops, I've made a mistake, or you wanted to restore that custodian. We couldn't do that previously before this feature. And the second use case was the finding out who the released custodian was on a single hold was pretty it wasn't intuitive in terms of user experience. So what we did was, we just added the ability to restore a custodian back to its original state once they've been released. And secondly, as you see in the screenshot, we've just added a new bucket for released custodians. As if custodians are released on a particular legal hold, they're now easy to track right there on the tile view, which you can actually click on and then take action. They see who released it and all the different as part of the history. So we'll just look at a quick demo for that. Again, a small thing, but I think it just makes the process a lot easier, because I've heard release custodians is a pretty popular option.
Yeah, as Manu said, we have added 2 improvements here, as you may see. This is the tile view for LegalHold, where you can see all the statistics related to the responses and the custodians. And in this case, before this, it wasn't hard to spot or not entity to check which of the custodians were released. So if I go, for example, here, we see the view that we see in the screenshot, and you can have the list or the statistic related to who have responded, who have not responded. But as Manu said, what happens if you have released a custodian by accident? So we have created this option that it's called restore custodians. And when you click on this, you will be able to restore the custodian and the restore details, and you can add the legal staff restore notification email and the data stewards restore email as well. So you can just set the date and the comment, this custodian was released by error, mistake. And you set to send any of those. When you click on the restore custodians, it will send a notification to the staff in this case. So it's a pretty cool, useful, and you will be able to see that the custodian was restored because it was here, and now it's set to the one that doesn't have any response.
And of course, it will be tracked in the audit trail, for the hold. If 6 months from now you want to see, hey, I thought this custodian was released, why is this custodian back? So it'll basically keep track of when the custodians were released by an error, who then restored it, why it was, why the custodian was restored. All that's part of the the whole audit history, just making sure that you have your everything ready for that. So that's something now available as well. Yeah, the next thing we want to talk about was the separate release preservation notice workflow. So this is, let me give a background. So currently, in the LegalHold product, you can send out multiple notices at the same time to multiple sets of people. The way clients use what we call a preservation notice is to data stewards. Normally, the analogy in the application is that the hold notice is sent to the custodians, and a separate preservation notice is sent to the data stewards, letting them know, hey, this hold has been issued. These are the custodians. Let's go preserve, their documents or whatever needs to happen. And if you want to then monitor compliance from your data stewards, that's possible as well. So for every hold, there is one LegalHold hold notice. There's one preservation notice. There's sets of custodians. There's sets of data stewards. So the problem statement, for this workflow we basically added was, sometimes, once the hold is released, the preservation notice still needs to be in place, because currently what was happening now was the hold and the preservation notice were both released at the same time. But the problem was sometimes, the evidence needs to be held on for longer, even after the hold has been released. And the second use case was the data stewards weren't automatically being notified once the preservation notice was released, different from the hold notice being released. So we just added the ability to release a notice, but not release the corresponding preservation notice, because in some cases, if you want to hold on to evidence for the legal hold, even after the release of the legal hold, that functionality is now available. And then filter out your preservation notices with your legal hold notices separately, and then also notify the data steward separately once a preservation notice is released. I know, Lee, this is a pretty common use case in Xerox. Can you explain how you plan to use this? Are you already using this particular feature?
We already are. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but from what I heard with the paralegals, what they needed was the ability for some of our agency charges, even though the matter is closed, there was still several years where the involved parties could come back and bring an action. So we, even though the hold gets closed, they still wanted the ability to preserve documents, emails, and such, just in case during that period an additional action comes up. And one thing kind of in general, this ties to like the client groups, the user groups, is this was something that we brought to you in one of those groups. So to have, it seemed like a pretty rare, kind of an unusual scenario, but to make a case for it and to see it come out in the final product, it really speaks to the value of joining a client group, a user group, because you can hear what other people are doing and really communicate your needs and to see it come about within the product. So it is something that we're definitely using. And it's all because we basically gave you a summary of what our need was, and here it is.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's again, because it was a great point, the client working group, because I know it is not only Lee, because other clients also like, yeah, this is kind of a cool feature, and that's how we kind of derived. We demoed this feature in the client working groups to get that feedback, to make sure when we did release that feature, it has all the requirements from all our clients, and that's a great testament, Lee. Thank you for the client working groups. So what this is basically is, once you've sent out a hold with a corresponding preservation notice, when you go and release a particular legal hold, we've added new options that you can choose whether you want to release the corresponding preservation at the same time or not. So just a couple of checkboxes. And once you've done that, it'll release the legal hold, not release the preservation notice. And then we've given the ability to release the preservation notice at a later stage.
Okay, so as Manu said, in this case, we're gonna check for the holds that have preservation notice. You can do it by just using this toggle as well. That will display only the ones that has the preservation notice. In this case, we know that the dump versus Mercat hold has the preservation notice, and of course it has a hold. So if I go to release the hold, it will show the screenshot that you just saw, where I set the release date for the hold and the comments, and I can say just releasing only the hold. You can set the whole release email, but in this case, we won't be releasing the preservation notice. So we can add just the release hold email. In this case, I just will do the normal steps and just send the step for the stuff, and I will release the hold. So the hold will be released, but the preservation notice can be released by in a separate way. So if you go again to look for the preservation notice, you will be able to see that the preservation notice is still active, and you are able to make the release in a separate way. As this is a very uncommon case, but you can do it in this way because LegalHold provide that flexibility.
Cool. And that's available again, as Lee mentioned, this is already available in the existing non-production and production environments. I think released a few months back. The other thing we want to talk about was just kind of improved configuration options. One of the themes we've had, during our client working group sessions, as more and more clients are using it, is just adding more and more configurability to the application. And you'll realize I'm using the word configurability and not customizability, because customize, at least to me, customizable is something that, Mitratech from a product side will do something, or you need developers to do something. Configuration to me is something that can be done by a normal user, from within the application. So what we've done is we've added, the use case was to add more and more configuration options. Cesar, if you can just move the slide forward, please. Configuration option by disabling and enabling certain pieces of functionality. One of the things was adding the subject. One of the just to in the scheme of making the hold notice creation process faster. One of the use cases was, hey, why do I have to enter? I have to enter the same subject every time for 40 notices or 40 holds I send out. Well, we've added configuration for you, configuration where you can actually auto-populate the subject, with variables automatically to a template. So when you pick the template, the subject is automatically populated. Again, speeding up the time process. And also the one feedback we got from, we have this product integrates with your HR feed, with your HR data. So via simple kind of like a feed. Sometimes, there might be successes or failures in that particular feed. The use case was, hey, I have to always log into the application to see what the status is, for our particular HR feed that happened overnight. So we've added some kind of configurability to the users where you can get automatic notifications to one or multiple people on kind of the status of the HR feed. This again, speeding up the process of not having to log into the application and just being more kind of improving kind of the user experience. So these are some of these are not all, there's some of the configurability options we've added for the last year. We've added the ability to now be able to automatically display the recipients and the hold notice. This is something that, hey, I always want this toggle turned on, or I always want to add a questionnaire. I don't want to send out a hold without sending a questionnaire. Well, you can then globally enable this option. So every time you're creating a particular legal hold, the questionnaire step kind of becomes mandatory. Or, I just mentioned about the notifications to the HR feed. We've added that capability. The use case we had from clients was, hey, we have a lot of warnings. We import 100,000 people every night, and we don't want to populate our HR feed warnings with, HR feed data or the kind of the status file, with warnings. So we've added the capability now also for you to disable warnings and only see errors, because errors kind of are more important of why a particular record is failing. Or, we already have the same global reminder schedule for all our non-respondent reminders and escalations. I don't want to do that on a hold by hold level. So we've added kind of a global schedule now for that as well. Or the ability to kind of not auto-populate a subject as part of a template, with variables. So these are just some of the configuration options we've added to the application over the last few years. We go to the demo, there might be some stuff that you might not have seen, or even if you're using the product might be new to you as well, because some of them is just very hot on the press. But I think it's kind of just with the ability to add as much configurability to the application as possible. So we just kind of look at some of them now.
Yeah, as you might saw into the holds creation, there are a few options that I mentioned, like the approvals workflow, like the questionnaires on the hold notice, display recipients, and so on, that can be set up for LegalHold, per each LegalHold. But in this case, as Manu said, in order to save some time and make it more efficient the process of the creation of the LegalHolds, we have added these options that allows you to have a global setting defined and that you can change whenever you are creating the hold. But this will save some time if you want ever to display for example, the hold notice, or you don't want to display it at all. That will be something that you can configure and use it. Pretty much similar for the enable notice approval. In this case, it will be the enable by default, but you can just toggle off and that will be disabled, and you can send the host without having a notice approval, and pretty much the same for our customers. As well, this works also for the configuration email notification, which is what Manu was talking about. We have the HR feed process that imports data from an HR feed to the LegalHold and creates people records. And sometimes whenever the feed comes within an error or something like that, you only was able to see the errors when you log into the platform. So this option will allow to send an email notification to the persons that are listed here to correct the HR feed file. Also, you can disable the warnings because most people are caring about the errors because warnings are created, but this doesn't stop the process to add the people record to the person record to the LegalHold, but errors does. So that is something like Manu said, sometimes you import a 100,000 of people and you don't want to see a 100,000 of warnings. So in this case, this applies also for the reminders. As you remember, into the whole creation process, there is a step where you can set the hold and reminders and escalations. So you can set global this, and you can save some time by creating the hold, by setting the reminder schedule and the escalations by default. I think that those are some of them. There are more that related to that.
Yeah,
but
I know, Lee, this is something y'all are using pretty, right? Because you use questionnaires and reminders pretty regularly for all your legal holds that go out.
Yes. Yep. We have a standard 90-day that we send the reminders out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is the use case was, again, multiple holds in a day. Don't want to pick the reminders every time I'm creating a new legal hold, just speeding up the whole process. Because that's kind of the theme we had over the last year. Obviously, apart from the reporting capabilities, we just wanted to make the process of creating a legal hold, much faster. Because we have clients that send out 40, 50, 60 holds a week. That just saves them. If you look at a week, if it's, even if you save like 2 minutes per hold, and we send out 60 holds a week, that's still like 2 hours technically you might have saved. So that's kind of the theme we had, for this particular, adding these configuration options, adding the new hold templates, just kind of speeding up the whole creation process and making the whole process streamlined and much faster. And last thing we wanted to just talk about was there's something we've recently added. We don't have a kind of a demo for this, but this was, so we already have an employee change notification, right? So currently what we have is when an employee is changes or leaves the company, their status changes from an active status to an inactive status automatically overnight by the HR SIP. We already have functionality. If that happens and that person is on active legal hold, which means they've left the company, they're on active legal holds, we have workflows that sends out automatic notifications to different people. Very popular workflow. I'm sure most of our clients who are using this application are using that workflow. What we didn't have, or what we found out, was sometimes, different information on a custodian record can change overnight. Custodians can change their names, they can change departments, they can change managers, and there's no way for us to, or there was no way for us to track what those changes are. If there was a way you'd have to go manually do that, which was kind of time consuming. And there was no also a history of action of what information has changed for a particular custodian. There was no way for you to do that. So we've basically just improved our custodian employee change monitor that basically when a custodian's information changes overnight, whether they change department, they change names, any change to the demographic information, we are now capturing that on a history on that particular record, so you can easily track what the changes are. And secondly, if those people whose information has changed are on active legal holds, are basically active custodians on active legal holds, if you want, we can also send out automatic notifications to group A, B, C, D, E. Just basically, I know I've heard use cases where if a user changes, their custodian changes a department, well, now maybe their legal hold obligations are a little different. Or if they change managers, right? Maybe now the new manager is involved and the new manager is now going to get notifications. So you might want to have some workflow. So this basically lets you be aware of when a particular information change, demographic information changes on the custodian records, and that custodian is an active custodian on active legal holds, we can then automatically schedule notifications as well. So we have a screenshot of what that basically looks like on a particular person record. We have now, we call a new history tab that basically shows the old value, the new value, the date that information was changed, and how that information was changed, whether done by the HR feed. Eventually, we'll get to the manual workflow as well. And then if the person whose information is changed is an active custodian on an active legal hold, you can then configure automatic emails, to be sent out as well. So that's something that's available as well. It's kind of our employee, change monitor. I know we're running our time. We want to go through roadmap real quick and leave at least a few minutes for question and answers. For the roadmap point of view, for our this year, our application is user experience, drive adoption through behavior to get the legal work done faster. And you've seen the stuff you've seen. We just want to do the work, to make the legal hold process as fast as possible. So that's under our user experience theme. We also have a theme around integrations. We'll talk about that, and scalability, just improving, building new integration tools, scaling if you're sending out 50 holds, if you're doing data migrations with third-party solutions, if you're doing integrations with third-party solutions, just improving that scalability process a lot faster as well. So based on our themes, the few of the items we're currently working on, Cesar, if we go to the next slide, is the integration piece. We're currently working on our integration with the Office 365 automatically. So once basically a custodian is added on, on a legal hold in our application, the data sources for that custodian in the Office 365 advanced discovery is also put on hold automatically. We are looking to do with an automatic integration with an e-discovery provider. Right now, we are focused on the legal hold side of things. There is definitely value in us providing an out-of-the-box integration with one of the e-discovery providers. It's not something we want to get into. We want to keep into the ELM and the legal hold space, but there are dedicated e-discovery providers out there that we're going to build automatic integrations with. And we have a few kind of selected, shortlisted which ones we'll build that integration to. And also, at least for our Team Connect clients, we're using this, creating new dashboards in TCBI, leveraging the legal hold and integration. So again, if you're a Team Connect user, at least you'll be able to see on the business intelligence TCBI dashboards, see some GC level and AGC level dashboards having that legal hold information available. At the same time, just improving the user experience with custom search and reporting. And the bucket that that Leon mentioned earlier, we call under the client satisfaction enhancements. This product is still a work in progress. It's relatively new, but we've added a lot of functionality over the last 2 years, but we want to still hear from our clients in the client working groups, get real-time feedback. Hey, this will be a cool feature. Get kind of, acceptance across the board from our clients, and have that on the roadmap as part of the client satisfaction enhancements bucket. And the data migration tool is just something we're working on just to improve the implementation timelines. If you have data that's from an e-discovery provider, you want to get into legal hold, we're building kind of a out-of-the-box data migration tool that can help you just get data from displaced applications into legal hold much faster and much kind of a scalable way. So that's something we are looking to do as well this year. So I know we have 5 minutes left. I just want to keep that for some Q&A. If any folks had any questions on something we've seen so far, or something that's you feel just generally about the product, we can definitely spend some time answering those questions. Lee, if you have any questions, you can ask those as well. I know Dave's from our sales solution consulting department. Lee, Dave, if you have any questions, this will be a good quorum for that. Anybody? I didn't see a lot of questions. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll just send this out. I know Debbie had mentioned that we'll be sending out the recording and this presentation material. If you want to share that with other folks. Again, if anything else comes up around legal hold, we can definitely share our information, mine and Cesar's, that can help you answer any questions generally about the product, our direction, what we've done so far, what the product does, what it doesn't do right now, and what it's going to do. We can definitely have one-on-one conversations, in that as well. So with that, I just wanted to kind of thank you all's time. Lee, thank you so much for for joining this. this call as well. Your feedback, your attendance in the client working groups is much appreciated, and your continued engagement as well. So thank you so much. Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Right.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Manu.